Going deep today, so you gotta make sure you're breathing. And I don't do coffee, but I'm naturally awake. So can we make some noise in here? Is everybody awake? All right. So I have a clicker, and I've got 9 minutes and 30 seconds with you. So let's do this. All right, I'm going to start with the title of this short presentation, Why We Must Opt Out of the Technocratic State. Some of you might be aware that I wrote a book called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. I actually published this originally January 31st, 2020. And then a few weeks later, we heard about COVID. And it's become my most popular book, now translated to Spanish, German, working on Japanese and Korean. And I just recently, a couple of months ago, published a second edition of this book, which is the post-COVID edition, because obviously we've learned a lot the last 3 years. And when I wrote this book originally, we hadn't heard the phrase, the Great Reset. There weren't so many people paying attention to things like Agenda 2030, technocracy, transhumanism. People like James have been talking about it for over a decade now, myself and others. But many of you here, really COVID was the spark that got you to this conversation, and we're grateful for that. But I was paying attention to this beforehand and warning about the rise of social credit scores, AI, which is now obviously a part of the everyday conversation, as well as digital identities. We didn't quite know the phrase vaccine passports yet, but the information was all there. And so I wasn't predicting COVID or anything like that, but I was definitely warning of the world that we are now seeing, that we're facing. My short presentation, I'd like to focus as much as possible on solutions. That's what this book is about. And I know that, did anybody here come for solutions to this event? I imagine, right? It's called Better Way. And we're going to get into, I know there's going to be some great information presented. We're going to get deep into it, but I think it is important that we do focus on the solutions that might be available to us. But before we get to that, I'm going to give a brief background, super brief, to anybody who doesn't know about this phrase, technocracy, or what I call the technocratic state, what we're facing. So in the US and Canada, 1920s, 1930s, all the way up till early 1950s, you had this movement called technocracy, which was part of progressive politics at the time. You had the Great Depression, and all different thinkers were trying to figure out what's the next step. The economy is not working, people are losing money, people are really hurting. And there were some thinkers who said, you know what, the politicians, they're too stupid to figure it out. Not only that, the people are too stupid to figure it out. What we need is a group of elite scientific and technological experts to manage society, what is sometimes referred to as the technate. And this would be run by a technocratic king. And this technocracy, they were describing early computers back then. They didn't quite have the terminology, but everything we're seeing today is what they were predicting. They were imagining that through AI, computers, et cetera, that they could get a scope of the entire planet, and they would know how to micromanage all society. And they could say, this neighborhood should have this much food, this neighborhood should have this much food and these resources, and it would be a perfect, great world. It would be a utopia, right? They tell us. And the idea did catch on for some time. There was parties dedicated to it in the US and Canada, and I think even parts of Europe caught on a little bit. Interesting fact, Elon Musk's grandfather was a part of the Social Credit Party in Canada, was part of the technocracy movement. And these ideas they had their moment, and they were growing. There's some books about it, which I reference in my book, which I think are worth knowing about it because they give you some insight. The ideas, we're told, essentially fell out of favor and disappeared to the dustbin of history. But the reality is that these ideas have been guiding politics behind the scenes for almost 100 years now. And more of us are aware of this. But when you start to look at, for example, COVID-19, we're going to get into in just a second, COVID-19, trust the experts. That itself is a technocratic mindset. The people, we don't know what's best. We should just trust the experts, the scientific and technological experts, to tell us what's right. And this ties into the transhumanist philosophy. You've already heard enough about that, so I think you guys understand this idea of bringing technology together, merging with humans, and we're seeing a lot of it coming to fruition. Then in the 70s, this gentleman here, who, if you're not familiar, you should know his crimes. Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was an advisor to nearly every single US president during his life, all the way up to Obama. He passed away a couple years ago. He's best buddies with Henry Kissinger, who just turned 100 years old somehow the other day. And these people just don't disappear, do they? But in the 70s, he wrote a book called America Between Two Ages, the Technotronic Era, and he describes technocracy, but he rebrands it as Technotronic. And again, describing the same thing, describing a global police state being run by a scientific experts, group of elite. You could see this idea revived. Interestingly enough, right around this time was the founding of the World Economic Forum, the Club of Rome, the discussion of limits to growth, and the idea that humanity itself, that we should be taught that we are the enemy, that we are the problem, and only by having some scientific elite running things can we actually get to a better world. And we've obviously seen the rise of this technocratic mindset during what I call COVID 1984. And if you're not familiar with that phrase, please normalize it everywhere, because that's what it was. People like Bill Gates, Musk, Bezos, Fauci, I mean, you guys got technocrats all over Europe as well. Again, trust the experts. They know what's best for us. And then now in the world that we're in, these folks right here running Amazon, we could add Zuckerberg, Facebook, Instagram, all those tools, they have control of the tools that we're trying to use to communicate. And clearly we saw they can control the conversation. They can limit the conversation however they like. Now this is where we're at though, right? The last 3 years have been such a beautiful time. Does anybody else feel like this is why you're here on this planet? To be here in this moment? So let's give a round of applause to that, because I don't know whether to call it fate or destiny or something like that. I'll leave you to decide if you believe in such a thing. But all I know is that every day I wake up thankful to be here at this time. I have 6 nieces and nephews at home, all 13 and under, and the youngest ones think it's normal to see people with masks on, to all the craziness we've seen. We don't need to rehash it. But I'm so grateful to be alive here now to make sure that Uncle Derrick can do what he can to give them a better world. The reality is, my friends, I don't know if we can stop what they're trying to build. They're working night and day, spending trillions of dollars, working with every multinational government in the world, corporations all over the world, to create this great reset, this Agenda 2030. And we don't know if it's a foregone conclusion per se. It's not like 2030, the clock strikes January 1st and we're going to be in their prison. But they are definitely working on this. And that's why it's important that we're here. And every organization and event that I have listed here, including Better Way Conference, Next Steps, which is based in the US, the Greater Reset, which is an event I organize, my website, The Conscious Resistance, Ramiro's Take Back Our Tech, the Freedom Cell Network, all the work that these folks are doing here. This is about trying to create an alternative. I don't know if we can stop it, but I do believe what we're doing today and the way we're coming together, we're considering what are they trying to do, and more importantly, what are we going to do? I want to encourage everybody here to stop spending so much time worried about what they're doing and think about what is your 2030? What is your freedom 2030? Your liberation 2030? That's what really matters. If we put all the same amount of energy that we put into going down these rabbit holes and arguing with other people on the internet, then we might actually create a better world for the coming generations. And I think that's what matters most to me. And my work focuses on trying to build parallel systems. I don't think we're giving up or we're running away. Personally, I see that these systems that they have built are corrupted to the core, and I don't think they're worth reforming or saving. I'd rather build something new with all of you for the coming generations, because this is the thing, every single one of our ancestors, no matter where you come from on this planet, every single one of our ancestors had to work to get us here. No matter the skin color, the language you speak, they had to go through blood, sweat, and tears to get us here. Today is 2023. And if we see all the things that we see coming and we choose not to act, we are failing our ancestors. And not only that, we are failing the coming generations who are counting on us. The ones who are not born yet are counting on those of us who see what's coming to take steps, to get over our insecurities, to get over our fears, to get over our doubts, and to take action. And nothing else at this point really matters. If we see what's coming and we choose not to act, I believe that would be a spiritual death. And not only, again, failing our ancestors and failing those who are coming after us. Exit and build, this is what I talk about in my book. Again, exiting out of slavery systems, building parallel systems, whether that's big tech, whether that's the economy, the food system we understand, and of course, so many people have spoke about this, saving the young ones, because we know they're coming for them as well. They're trying to indoctrinate the coming generations. So that's what I want to share, is put your energy and your time into focusing on what can you do? How can you help yourself, your community on a local level? Let's exit from their slavery systems. Let's build and create and support those who are creating new systems. Take a holistic approach, and most importantly, remember that we have to do the internal work as well. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your time.